This is tape 2. If you're playing this tape first, you're not correct. Back on the rack once again. On our journey from Zermatt back to Brig. On the Brig Visp Zermatt meter gauge line. I got off the train at Stalden to take a few videos on the rack. First train I came in contact with was with this short freight bound for Zermatt. That's no optical illusion. They really do gain altitude that fast. The Swiss transport system. A little bit of buses. And scheduled tramways. Everything meets the train. All I can say is, wow. Well, here's the rack. Little detail on how we get onto the rack. Highly worn. Another freight. And yet another freight. This time, he stops at Stalden and gives us a little bit of a treat. When was the last time you saw less than carload service in the U.S.? Here's a close-up of one of the gears that are on the freight cars for braking purposes. Yeah. More examples of the Swiss transportation system. Back on, and this time we catch one of the Triebwagens, or powered rail cars, that gives us an opportunity to watch the action out the front. And down into Visp. Here we are, back in Brig. There's the Hotel Europe. I was on the second balcony there. And also the Hotel Victoria, where we had our meals. Well, time for a quick pit stop before we, quick pit stop, you betcha, but you gotta take some pictures of the trains while you're at it. And then our afternoon's jaunt, which will be up the BLS. Oh, there's Jack. Hi, Jack. Here's this, well, cute's a good word for this locomotive. Yes, yes. This little side rod switcher on the meter gauge Furka Oberalt that they used. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now it's time for a trip up the BLS, up to Goppenstein, at the south end of the Laschenberg Tunnel. We're also in another railfan vehicle here, lettered for the BN of all things. There's a Glacier Express headed towards Zermatt. This was a local train and made all the stops up to Goppenstein. The BLS is being double-tracked. At the present time, almost all of it is done. But there are a few places where you do go on to single track, such as here. Here we are at Goppenstein, and one of the BLS car-carrying trains. Allows you to avoid driving over the pass for a price. Experience has shown that the Swiss do everything for a price. But they're honest about it. They tell you how much it's going to cost. There's no hidden charges. The Cheese Express restaurant car. As you can see, it's painted up to resemble cheese. Emmenthaler, to be exact.
Oh, that's your own broadcast. Okay.
Well, today it's on up to Montreux over the Swiss Federal. There's the BLS up above there heading out of Brig with eastbound train, east-south, whatever. Here we are at Visp and a first glimpse of one of the older Swiss Federal locomotives. Today we have the benefit of one of Swiss Federal's newest air-conditioned first-class cars. Lovely to ride in. A little difficult to take pictures out of, however. Well, you know, it's a trade-off, I guess.
If I read this correctly, and I think that's what it says. Now, there's perhaps a lot I missed. I guess because I shouldn't. It's none of my business. Apparently, someone
Wave that book.
I have little parts.
Heck, we even have a telephone on board. I don't know if anybody ever used those or not. Ah, the Montreux Overland Bernois Bahn. At Montreux. Very compact station and shops. There's just not a whole lot of room on the flat ground around Switzerland. If somebody would have said to me that there was a Coca-Cola boxcar lying around someplace, I would have laughed them out of existence till I saw that one. Ah, now this is more like it. Golden Mountain Pullman Express. I took a little hike to get a different vantage point, and it gives you a better idea of how well they make use of their space. Here's an MOB train heading in to Montreux. A real class act. Well, it's time for us to head up the tracks to Zweisimmen. And I do mean up. And here we are coming down into Zweisimmen. Well, here's how the MOB gets around carrying full-size cars with these little bitty trucks. Just room for one wheel on each. And a little rack. And there he's headed up the hill. Now a little lesson in how to use gravity to help you with your switching. BLS also comes into Zweisimmen. Standard gauge, of course. Well, everything has to connect with something else in Switzerland, doesn't it? Well, now we're on our way back to Montauban. We'll take a little scenery viewing in here while we're on our way back. Gstaad in the Swiss Open Tennis Tournament. It's in, it's in. Also at Gstaad, the Olympia Circus was in town. We've caught up with our freight train. Ah, there are the rest of them. Look at that clean engine. Gosh darn. I love the open-air vestibules that we have and diaphragms. Try that in the U.S. Who's that? Who's that? Well, let's see. How does this thing work, huh? Oh, that's why we're here. Waiting for a meet with the Panoramic Express. Yes, we're back at Montauban, where our cars will be switched over to the GFM. Don't ask me what the GFM stands for, I can't remember. But I do know it does go through Gruyere. I wonder if their whistles mean what our whistles mean, And here we go. And we leave Antonio on the ground there. Yes, there is a Gruyere, as in Gruyere cheese. Typical station on the line. And a rather unique way of operating our train down into Pas-le-Deux. I believe that's how it's pronounced, but I'm not French, of course. We'll just kind of give us a little extra power on the way down the hill. Well, the theory was, my theory anyway, was that they were using this particular green motor to pull these two cars back from Pas-le-Deux. Now we're in Lausanne. And probably the only minor foul-up of the trip, and it wasn't our fault. Just lack of communications. But it did give us an opportunity to see a lot of trains at Lausanne, a lot of different trains. Even a TGV. And how about this thing? We'll go from the newest to the oldest. Even one of the few cabooses I saw in Switzerland.
Good morning. This is our last day in Brig, Switzerland. Today we take the trek to Italy and then to Locarno, Switzerland, then back up through Lucerne to Olten and Brugg.
Cintia Valley runs from Domo de Solo, Italy, to Locarno, Switzerland. It's run by the Swiss. Well, I might add. Sentiavale is actually its nickname. The true name, well, I'm not good at Italian either. But it's something like Ferrovia Autolinee Regionale Ticino. Spell it out by the first letters. And, well, I'll show you later.
Santa Maria Maggiore.
Yep, that's what those letters spell, all right. Well, that was a quick trip. Now we're up at Goschenen. This time, we're going to take the Furka Oberalp up to Andermatt. This is a real rack railway. 1,000 feet up in less than 3 miles. This is serious climbing. I thought it might be interesting to see what the engineer sees in the tunnel. And it's obvious that what he sees is not very much with those real dim headlights of his. Here we go. Let's see what he sees. Pretty much darkness is what he sees. And on into Andermatt from the other direction. Well, what looked like on the timetable as being an easy up and back trip turned out to be about an hour wait, because the train that you see just in the center of your picture is the next Goshinen-bound train, and it's going to take off now. So I stuck around and took another picture of a train coming down the squiggles. That's what they look like on the map. The squiggles into Andermatt.
Zugseilfahrt auf Gleis 3 folgende Haltung nach Hospitalreal, Overland 4, Städte Nürnberg. Fahrmäßiger Abfahrt am 14:55 Uhr.
Now we know why they need rack assist on this line. Well, here we are at Brugg. Bahnhof. And our hotel for the next 3 nights. The Hotel Terminus. Directly across the street. Well, you've got to have a little visit to the tracks when you're that close to the trains. With the station on the north side of the tracks at Brugg, I never did figure out in my mind which direction was Zurich. I know now where it was, but then I never could tell if there was a train coming and where it was coming from. I had to stop for about 5 minutes and figure out which direction it was actually going to arrive from. This train is coming from Zurich. Now this one is coming down the ramp from Lenzburg. Lenzburg line and then Lucerne will be our route out of Brugg today.
That's the exact one I want.
And here we go. In our first class, air-conditioned Swiss Federal car again, of course. When we arrived at Lenzburg, our car was put on another train, this time with wonderfully bright colored ends, for a trip down to Lucerne.
Are you in?
The reason for those brightly colored ends is quite apparent now. This is a definite side-of-the-road line. Almost looks like it used to be an interurban in the U.S. But that doesn't stop the Swiss from running big equipment on it. Around corners, through towns, up hills, around buildings. Downright fun is what it was. Downright fun.
Oh, some vessels on it. Yeah, it's time for me to put on my shades.
This one's like that. Oh, I'm on the station last night. I was just checking to see how he's getting Frank.
Well, look at that.
Like dark. Yeah, I came around for a fair amount of
Be able to stand here and no zipping and throwing around.
Yes. Well, somebody's holding.
Well, it's all sunshine on that side. It's so hard to see.
Well, here we are at the Swiss Federal Railway Museum. Well, I shouldn't say Railway Museum. It's actually called the Verkehrshaus, which is Swiss Transportation Museum. Me, well, I didn't see anything except trains. I didn't have time. That's a place that I'm going to have to go back and visit. The models, what can one say? They're just meticulous. I did enjoy looking at the models and seeing that one of the few that were U.S. was a Milwaukee Road bipolar electric. Swiss really do like electrics. Now here's a train layout. LGB. Feels just like the Radechevon, doesn't it? And of course, nothing would be complete at the Verkehrshaus without showing a few pictures of crocodiles. Or this 1847 vintage steamer with a lovely wood lagging on it. Dampflokomotiv. Equipment is all lovely and clean, and in a lot of cases looks like it just came out of the shops. Ah, there's that Milwaukee Road bipolar. And a couple of FAs from the Union Pacific. Ah, here's the Goddard line.
Leading through the Alps. Thanks to its ideal location in the center of Europe, the Gotthard line represents the shortest link between a great many of the big cities and industrial regions in the north and south of the continent. The Gotthard Railway was opened to traffic 100 years ago in 1882. At that time, the total traffic volume consisted of a mere 20 passenger and goods trains a day, whereas the line now has to cope with a daily average of 170 trains. At times of peak traffic, their number may even rise to 250, more than half of them being goods trains. On some days, the volume of goods traffic exceeds 110,000 gross tons, thanks to up-to-date safety and signaling installations and powerful electric locomotives. It has been possible to increase the capacity of the line by more than 40 times since it was built. No wonder, therefore, that the Gotthard line has become the most important transit line between Italy and the northern part of Europe. The layout of this working model represents one of the most interesting sections of the Gotthard line, the so-called northern region around the station of Wassen, with its striking line location work. This railway model system includes about 1,150 feet of track and 70 switch points. 12.5 miles of wire were needed for the various electric circuits. All installations of a technical nature, the numerous tunnels and bridges, the station layouts and power plants, but also the masts and gantry supports carrying the overhead contact lines, have been reproduced to scale according to original drawings. The line is divided into 18 block sections and fitted out with the 600 horsepower. A modern signal box with geographical panel of standard size controls the whole railway traffic. It prevents the track sections from being entered by more than one train at a time. By pressing two buttons on the panel, one at the commencement and one at the end of the route desired, the points involved are brought into the correct position by remote control. Now, let us watch the train ready for departure. The starting signal gives the line clear for the journey towards the south. Kapstellenbach Bridge, 164 feet above the river, with a length of 328 feet.
Well, to prove all things can go wrong even on the best run layouts,
Features of
it died. I did take a few more videos after the gentleman came around to fix it, so we'll have a few more here. Well, back to some of the static museum equipment. There's the Rede Shaban Baby Croc. This one's a battery-powered Triebwagen. And this thing, well, it's like kind of like a 1930s Chrysler Airflow, doesn't it? And here's the Burlington Northern. Oh, no, the Baron Neuenberg. Ah, that's right. Few steam locomotives. This one lacks creature comforts for the driver, I think. There's the inside of one of those Rede Shaban locomotives like the 222, which was in the shops at Langquart. That's one big motor. Ah, there's a full-size crocodile. Swiss Federal, 1920 vintage. And there's a little Mallet. And if that looks like a Leslie snowplow, that's because it is a Leslie snowplow. European style, but it's Leslie patents. This 210 is a 4-cylinder compound locomotive billed as this most powerful ever built in Switzerland. Most powerful class, rather. Well, this one definitely isn't as powerful. Still rather unique looking. Haven't been able to figure out what the third rail's for, though. It's a diesel, believe it or not. Diesel-powered rail car. Well, here we are. Take a look at some of the scenery at the museum. Because we're going to take a boat back to the Bahnhof. Hauptbahnhof, I believe that's considered. So we'll take a look at a little bit of flora and fauna here. Well, there's Flora and her boyfriend. And there's Fauna. Anyway, this is the boat that we took back to the Bahnhof. And had a unique opportunity. It's called it was a pacing shot here coming up. Pacing shot with a steamboat. now we're here on the platform of the Lucerne Bahnhof. Take a look at some of the unique and interesting equipment that the Swiss have to offer. And there's side rod switcher. Even have one for the post office. This is why you don't cross tracks in Switzerland. Here's a whole string of cars coming down with no engine on it whatsoever. Swiss Federal narrow gauge. We're about to head up the Brunig line down to Brienz. There's a Brunig line train. They're putting on a second unit so that we can hit up over the racks section, over Brunig Pass, down to Meringen. Different style rack used on the Brunig line. Hi, Bill. Meringen, we reverse our direction and head down the fast route down to Brienz. And, of course, if there is a mountain in Switzerland, you have to put a railway up it. This is the Brienz-Rotherbahn rack railway. One of the very, very few, if not the only one, that is not electric powered. It was nice of the people of Brienz to do a little entertainment for us while we were waiting for our lake boat. Oh, I like that. I never did quite figure out what the reasoning for that was. I know why we were there. We were there to ride the Laschenberg 1916 vintage steam side-wheeler. And our destination was Interlaken Oost. Ah, but this is why we like steamboats. Look at that equipment. Oops, he needs lessons.
Want a beer, Fred, or anything? I had a couple of things to see. You want? You guys haven't been on Titus in a long time.
Here we are back in Brugge again. Or is it Olten this time? I don't know. But I do know we're on our way to to ride a couple of steam-powered narrow gauge lines today. Ah, it's definitely Brugg. Our first trip will be out to the Waldenbergbahn, out at Liestal. And our second to the Ösingen-Balstal-Bahn for a chartered steam trip. Here we are coming into Olten. Where our car will be removed from the train, placed on another train for the trip out to Liestal. In fact, this day, the Swiss Federal will have handled this particular first-class air-conditioned car 12 times. I'd love to see Amtrak do that for no extra charge. Think it'll ever happen? Well, here we are on the Waldenbergbahn. If this car seems a little bit narrower than the ones we've been riding, it is. This time we're on a 75 centimeter track. 75 centimeters being about 29.75 inches. 29.5, 29.75. It's close. We're on our way up to Waldenberg. Excuse me, Waldenberg. There we go. And here we are. Ah, there's that little beauty. (1937) vintage locomotive.
Boys.
Well, lack of run-bys notwithstanding, I enjoyed this very much. Gave me the opportunity to try some new techniques of videography. Like this one. Here we are back in Liestal. He's moving. Ah, there we are, back in Olton again. I recognize that steam engine anywhere. Well, we got some more time to kill here in Olton. Everybody's going to have lunch except me. Well, I won't say everybody, but I'm not going to have lunch. There's too many trains out there. Well, here comes our trusty first-class air-conditioned coach again. Another one of its numerous and assorted moves. This time for the very, very short trip of about 11 minutes out to Isingen for our ride on the Isingen-Balstalbahn behind another 060 tanker, this time in some rather unconventional equipment, shall I say? Well, I don't know. Potted palms just aren't quite conventional to me. Not in a steam excursion. Oh, smile. You're on candid camera. All right, here we go. And here we are coming into Balstal. Now there's a standard gauge baby crock.
can't,
the finish that you want.
you can't do anything else. It's Coca-Cola pretty good for cleaning the windshield of the car.
It did wonders for it, and 5 layers of wax.
Well, here we are back in Eensingen, excuse me. With our chartered train getting ready to head back to Balstal, and we're getting ready to head back to Olten, and then back to Brugg. And from Brugg, the next day to Zurich, and then to Chicago, and then to parts unknown. Did I enjoy the trip? You bet. Would I go back? You bet. Anytime. Here we go. Here comes our first class coach, this time on a suburban train. Ah, Feldschlossen, Schließen, beer. Well, on this auspicious, on this note, I think we'll say a fond farewell to Switzerland. At Olten for the final time. You bet. That's me. Hope you enjoyed it.